I'm Jessica Johnson. I'm a writer and a mom, and I teach at PCC. June A, getting her glasses. She'll be right back. And we'd like to welcome you to the second Constellation reading series. We're really happy to bring together Kevyn Way, Lisa Lee, and Manuel Aragon. And we're really happy again to bring all of you together. We're happy to see some of you for the second time. So we're happy to bring all of you together, and also all of you for joining us virtually. As we gather in this space, it's important for me as a settler to say that we're gathered on the unceded traditional homeland of Multnomah, Castanet, Clackamas, Tumwater, and Walla Cascades, and Anishinaabe, as well as the Tualatin Calabria and many other recognized and unrecognized Indigenous nations of the Columbia River. And in order to live stream, we're using digital resources, including high-speed internet, not available in many Indigenous communities. And we hope this acknowledgement isn't just words, but an invitation or reminder to learn about and hold in mind the specific broken promises on which the city and the state rest, and to find ways to concretely and materially support Indigenous sovereignty and the return of land. We say all of this also with the intention to make good use of this time. Before we get started, we again want to thank Lance Cleveland and Teen House for their generosity and opening their beautiful space to us. And thank you for the books. And thanks to each of you for your consideration in honoring our COVID policy and looking out for each other. Many of you are maybe here because you know one of the readers or one of us, and that's awesome. We also hope you come back. We will be here the third Thursday of every month this year, except July and December. And after the reading, the upstairs mask optional space will be open for mingling. Without further ado, June will introduce Kevyn Way.
Hi, welcome everybody. Awesome to see so many people here. I am super honored and privileged to introduce my friend Kevyn Way. Kevyn and I know each other because we share a history with adoption. And I really appreciate the way Kevyn thinks politically about adoption, and I've learned a lot from them about our history and about how we shape our identities. Kevyn Way is a writer and storyteller who centers narratives from Black and UTPOC people, currently a resource artist in residence at ITRC for the next year. Kevyn will be hosting creative writing workshops for queer and transgender and gender nonconforming adoptees of color. Their work has been published with Alchemy, Pact, Prevention at the Intervention, Scattered Progression, Bellium Literary Magazine. And they have been an artist in residence at 2727 California Street, Apogeo Collective, Caldera Art, and Independent Publishing Research Center. Please help me welcome Kevyn.
Kevyn, I turn it on. Because I turned it off, but it's on now. So I am Kevyn, pronouns are they, he, and I'm going to read two pieces for everyone tonight. The first one is called Beautiful Disaster, and it was actually one of the first pieces I ever wrote. I started going to BIPOC writing classes here in Portland, and was inspired by this class. So very exciting. In 3/4 of a mile, turn right. I jump in the driver's seat as Fury's voice booms through my car speakers, interrupting my podcast. The last 18 miles had been a straight shot, and I had forgotten all about her. Thanks, I replied. I pull onto a wide dirt road and see the cabin at the end, my house for the next 3 days. As I get closer, I see there is another car in the driveway. The oak cabin is bigger than it looked in the photos. On the porch sits a pair of wooden rocking chairs with an American flag swaying nearby. How patriotic, I mutter aloud. As I walk into the front door with my bag, I hear someone in another room. Hello? Hi, shouts a woman with copper skin just like mine. She pokes her head through the doorway. Come on in, she waves me into the kitchen. Oh, I say, I didn't realize there'd be another person staying in the house. Is that your car out front? It is. Martin, the owner, stopped by earlier and mentioned that there had been an accidental double booking for the weekend. He's a real country fella. Looks like it's you and me. She laughs as she puts her arm around my shoulder. My name is Layla. Hi, I'm Kiani. You can have the room upstairs. I don't mind sleeping on the pullout down here, unless you want to bunk together. Oh, no. I mean, no thanks. I prefer my own room. The thought of sharing my room with a chatty stranger sounds like my worst nightmare. Are you sure? She says. It can get a little scary at night. I'll be okay, really. Thanks. Okay, suit yourself. I've been wanting to come here for years. Glancing over both her shoulders, she slides in closer as if she's going to tell me a secret. This town is notorious for cold case murders, she whispers with giddy glee. Oh, you don't say, I reply. I do. That's why I'm here. I've been researching the murders in this town for a while now, and the cases always seem to go cold. I can smell something fishy going on, and I wanted to see if I could figure things out for myself. I stare at her, uneasy for a moment. Did you say murders? That's right, murders. It is the same story every time. A young Black woman from a 50-mile radius mysteriously disappears and the leaves go dry. But I have theories. I think the bodies are being thrown into the lake. The only possibility. She continues to explain her theories. I try to hide my feelings. I am here about the disappearances too, but she is here due to wonder and excitement, and I am here due to loss and anger. I decided it would be best to keep that to myself for now. That is quite an exciting theory you have going on. I'd love to hear more about that, but I'm really tired from my drive. I'm gonna go lay down for a while, I say politely to a pair of excited brown eyes. I smile and quickly take my bag upstairs. The bedroom had a full-size bed with a floral print bedspread, accompanied by 2 large deer heads mounted to the wall. I sit on the bed as I replay the conversation from the kitchen. I begin to wonder if the 2 of us being here is not a coincidence. Could someone have sent her here as a way to stop me? I try to think who would go through such lengths to intervene. My aunt has never approved of my research of the murders. Maybe it was one of her friends from church? No, that can't be it. I made sure not to tell anyone where I was going, and the church ladies always vacation somewhere warm. I stand up to grab my bag as the full moon begins to rise. It is almost time to start the ritual. As I begin taking the items I need out of my bag, there is a knock at my door. Do you see the moon? Layla shouts from the other side of the door. Yeah, it is very beautiful. I open the door just enough to put my head out. We should go on a full moon walk to the lake. I entertain her invitation. I do need to go to the lake, but I need to do the ritual in private. Maybe I could lose her for a bit amidst the trees. Yeah, let me grab my jacket, I say while closing the bedroom door. I carefully gather the pieces for the ritual and wrap them in a handkerchief, tucking the handkerchief in my pocket. As we walk towards the lake, I begin to recite the spell in my head over and over again. Once we reach the lake, I'll only have one chance to do it right, and I want to be ready. I've been able to practice on Schmedium, but he's only a dog after all. I'm worried about doing for humans. Did you hear what I said? They laughed. Lakes deep are frozen at the bottom. What are you talking about? I've been so focused on reciting the steps that I didn't realize she was talking to me. Oh, you don't know? This lake is frozen at the bottom with bodies frozen down there too. Frozen? How could the lake possibly be frozen? I'm just joking. Oh. When I was a kid though, my uncle told us that deep lakes like Lake Tahoe were frozen at the bottom and that there were dead bodies frozen down there too. I don't believe that anymore. But if that were true and Lake Tahoe was frozen, Crater Lake would also be frozen. It's much deeper, approximately 305 feet deeper. Frozen or not, I can guarantee you there are bodies at the bottom of Crater Lake. That's what I also think. It's the only way the bodies disappear the way they have been, right? I nod. Wait, how do you know there's bodies down there? My grandmother is down there. She comes to an abrupt halt. No way. That's why I'm here. I came to say my proper goodbye to her. As we approached the lake, I realized that this is my opportunity to ditch her. I continue by saying, my grandfather used to bring my grandfather used to bring my grandmother. My mom and my uncles are here every summer. One night, my grandmother went out for an evening stroll and she never came home. My family looked for her for months, but there were no leads. My grandfather came back for a few summers after trying to find any leads, but eventually it became too painful to keep coming back. If you wouldn't mind giving me some privacy, it was a devastating loss for the whole family. I turn away and muster up some tears. She stands there, mouth agape. I can only imagine her mixture of emotions. As she realizes she is sharing a cabin with kin of one of the cold case murders which inspired her trip. Yes, of course, she says. As soon as we separate, I wipe my tears and I get to work. The moon glows bright in the dark sky, just in time for me to begin the ritual. I knew my grandmother had been thrown into the lake after she was killed, or maybe even before, and I was determined to summon her spirit to come and tell me what had happened. I walked to where the lake meets the land and knelt down, brushing away the leaves and sticks to make a clear patch. I jump as chills run up my spine and the wind rushes through the trees. Relax, I tell myself, taking a few deep breaths. I take my grandfather's handkerchief from my pocket and place it on the clear patch of ground. I then take a photo of my grandmother, petals of her favorite flower, a page from her favorite book, and her favorite dessert, arranging each one in one of the 4 quadrants of the handkerchief. On both knees, I take a deep breath, preparing to begin. I take the elixir and roll the vial in my hands 3 times. I slice the inside of my palm and let the blood pool, carefully placing a drop of blood on each of my grandmother's treasures and pour the contents of the vial in the palm of my hand. As I mix the blood in the elixir, I say my spell. Once I finish, I wait, unsure how long it should take. When I tested it on medium, he resurrected immediately. After 15 minutes, I decided to come back tomorrow. I find Layla and we walk back in silence. As soon as my head touched the pillow, I slept like a corpse. Good morning. Would you like some coffee? Sure, thank you. The wind was hollering something fierce last night. It was. I was wondering, would you want to go back to the lake today? I'd love to see it in the daytime. Absolutely, Layla says. I chug my cup of coffee, ignoring the burn on my tongue and throat. Okay, let's go. As we walk towards the lake, there is a medley of leaves on the ground as if it were mid-October. I hoped to run into my grandmother as we got closer to the lake, but perhaps she got lost in the dark last night. All I see are leaves and other families. I begin leading us back to the location where the ritual had been performed. As we approach the spot, I hear crying coming from the bushes. Is that a baby? I say. A little boy comes out of the bushes and begins walking towards us. Hi, are you alone? I say, kneeling down to meet him at eye level. Where are your parents? I don't know, the boy wails. I think I lost them. Well, that's just great. The last thing we need right now is to be stuck babysitting. That's okay, I say. Everything will be all right. We will help you find them. This one's mine, whispers a soft voice as the boy gets closer to us. Suddenly, someone drops down from the trees and sprints towards the boy, her skin glistening like brown sugar in the sun. Moving with precision and speed, she grabs the boy and carries him straight into the lake. Just before they both disappear in the water, she turns back, looks at us, flashes a mischievous smirk, and falls backwards into the water without a splash. What the fuck was that? What was that? Was that a person? Did she just come out of the tree? Increase in Layla's voice with every question. I stand there, jaw dropped, speechless. I'm too shocked from what I have seen. Hello, did you see that? Layla shouts. That was a kid who was just dragged into the lake. And did that person come out of the tree? We have to call someone. Help! Help! Quiet! I shout as I put my hand over her mouth. The last thing we need is to draw attention to what just happened. Let me think. I begin pacing while I replay the steps from my ritual in my head. I did everything according to plan. What is going on? As I'm trying to make sense of everything, I hear the sharp snap of branches above me. My eyes follow the sound, and up in the trees, I see dozens of figures gracefully bound on the branches, still as statues. They are high and still enough that you would only see them if you knew where to look. Oh no. What? Wait, what are you talking about? I let out a long, exacerbated breath. Last night when I was alone, I performed a ritual to resurrect my grandmother, and instead, I don't know. You know how to resurrect the dead? Clearly not very well, I say sarcastically while gesturing to the figures in the tree. So this next one is actually the most recent thing I've written. And I'm very proud. I was trying to write a graded essay about birds and adoption, and I did it, but not at all in the way that I thought it was going to come together. So this one is called Brood. Cowbirds are brood parasites. Rather than raise their young themselves, they ditch their eggs in another species' nest and force these adopted parents to do the tough work of chick rearing. When a brown-headed cowbird hatches from its egg, an identity crisis seems inevitable. Baby cowbirds grow up with families that neither look nor act like them, sometimes in habitats which cowbirds typically don't even live. As a Black transracial adoptee raised by a single white woman in a predominantly white town, I often felt out of place. In the adoptee community, we call this racial isolation. I was the only Black, queer, transgender, and transracial adoptee that I knew. While growing up, I realized more and more that I was different from my family and my peers. As I left high school and entered college, I had hoped that this would be my chance to connect with other adoptees of color, but it would take me five years after graduating to finally find the community I was looking for. By winter of 2021, I began attending monthly support calls for adult adoptees of color. The first call I attended happened just after the holidays. Adoptees told stories about grieving the families they lost while grappling with the complex relationships they had with the white families that had raised them. Each of us were trying to make sense of the clipped stories we've been force-fed our whole lives. Though my first support call was overwhelming, I returned month after month for the next 12 months. These calls were the first phase for me to explore my adoption in a way that centered the experiences of the adoptees of color, and I found healing. Traumatic experiences that had happened to me with my white adopter had also happened to them. I was able to listen to people express things that had been on my mind for years. I once shared a memory from when I was 8 years old. As my adopter was driving me to school, she suddenly altered her route and told me she was dropping me off at juvenile hall. I sobbed and begged her to change her mind. Eventually, she did drop me at school, but to this day, my adopter will laugh about this and ask me if I remember, as if it was one big prank that we were both in on. After sharing this memory on the call, multiple adoptees reflected on having had their adopters threaten to or literally inflict state violence on the Black and brown children they had adopted. With the recent overturning of Roe v. Wade, viral posts of white families holding signs read, "We'll adopt your baby." But what happens to the Black babies raised in racial isolation? What happens if the baby is also queer and transgender? I know firsthand that these well-meaning white families are not equipped to raise the Black babies that they are adopting. Cowbirds use the failure or success of different nests to inform their decisions about where to lay future broods. In summer of 2022, a friend from the support call encouraged me to be a camp counselor at adoptee camp. I was hesitant, but she spoke of an inclusive, predominantly black and brown camp for adoptees, and I had to check it out. During a training day at camp, myself and a few other counselors were asked to speak on a panel. One of the panelists, a camp counselor who was white and a non-adopted sibling, talked about how difficult it was to feel like the minority when she had been a camper. She admitted to telling a Black camper that she didn't want to be their friend because they were too dark. I know my face flinched in disgust as this white person admitted how their momentary discomfort led them to act out in anti-Blackness and colorism to a room of predominantly Black and brown audience members, the caucasity. I had gone to camp cautiously excited, looking forward to being in a space specifically for adoptees. The ironic and cryptic part of camp is the way white, non-adopted siblings were centered. I could not understand who or why anyone had asked her to speak on a panel until I met the founder of the camp, a white, non-adopted sibling. The objectification and white saviorism does not stop with the parents who are adopting. It's embedded within the entire structure of these organizations. I thought this space was created for us, by us, but it was an overload of white saviors, transphobia, heteronormativity, exploitation and drama, dipped in trauma. Cowards have to figure out who they are without their biological parents. The shocking thing is that somehow most of them do. For those of us who hold intersecting identities, finding a community to love and hold you can feel like a quest. Some spend a lifetime searching for the spaces where their inner child can laugh and dance without shame of self-consciousness. Before going to camp, I thought I had found that. For years, I had grappled with what kind of community I wanted to prioritize building. I felt split between centering adoptee or centering Black, queer, and trans community, as all of these are important parts of my identity. Even though I was triggered, exhausted, and disappointed after camp, it opened my eyes to something incredibly valuable, the importance of Black, queer, and trans family. In learning to deeply love my transness, I can also embrace the kaleidoscopic fragments of myself, whereas my adoption is a time capsule, a continual point of pain stuck in the past. The more I unlearn and explore my gender, the freer and funner it becomes. Without deep gender exploration, I would have never been able to find others like me and who are able to mirror my softest parts. The bonds of me and my trans family have things of loss, just like adoption, but they also have multitudes of love, acceptance, understanding, and care. I may have not had my birth parents, but I learned how to find my family.
That's so powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that. These are the stories that we don't hear, and I'm so stoked that you were able to tell us your experience. Whew. That's really kind of- that's different sense to me as an adoptee too. Really resonant. Thank you so much. People don't hear adoptee stories. They don't know that adoption fucking sucks. I think it's a wonderful thing where all these needy children find a family and everything love transcends all, and there are realities that people need to learn about. So your work is so important. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Transitioning to Lisa, where are you there? Lisa. So excited to introduce you to Lisa Lee. I know of Lisa because of the Tin House residency. I follow Tin House on Instagram, and we probably do. And I saw her announcement of the residency that she's in right now with a summary of her work. She's writing a novel called American Han about Asian anger and Korean American and immigrant rage. And I was like, ooh, yes, need to meet this person. So we connected through DM on Instagram. And then it just worked out perfectly that she could be here at the reading. Lisa Lee, her is a recipient of the 2023 Marianne Russo Emerging Writer Award from the Key West Literary Seminar, an Emerging Writer Fellowship from the Center for Fiction and the Pushkar Prize. She has received numerous fellowships and awards, including Kundiman, Millay Arts, Hedgebrook, and Gentle Artist Residency. Her work has been published widely in various journals. Lisa holds a PhD in creative writing and literature from the University of Southern California. And again, she has at work on a novel called American Han about Asian anger and Korean American immigrant rage. Please help me welcome Lisa.
That good? I never know where to put the microphone. If I talk from over here, can you hear? Very awkward.
The live stream would love you to be close to it.
Get closer to it.
Yeah,
Like
thank
this.
you. Yeah, yeah.
But then it's like right in the corner of my eye. It's just, I never know what to do if I'm supposed to go like this. And it's just, it's always wrong, but I'm just gonna get close. Thank you all for coming. I have a list here, so thank everyone. Like, thank you all for coming. I really appreciate you taking the time out to come and listen to all of us read. I also want to thank June and Jessica for inviting us, and Lance you have Mac, okay, Lance, of Tin House for hosting the series. And also, where's the, is that the camera? My daughter is watching via live stream, so I have to say hi, you know, hi. I have a picture of her inside, so I can show it to you all later. And I'm gonna read an excerpt from my novel. And this excerpt is in the corner of here, it says Billy Collins at the bottom, and I don't know why. Yeah, oh, it's because I met him last month in Key West, and I didn't know who he was. He looked like a man who had just walked off a boat and looked just like, and he was just like windblown and talking and complimenting the thing that I had read, and and then his name tag flew over and it said Billy Collins. And I couldn't remember who he had said I should read because he compared what I read to somebody else, but I remembered his name. So I wrote his name down in the corner of my thing. So it's here. So that wasn't part of my list, but I did all the other things. So this is an excerpt from my novel, from either chapter 1 or chapter 2. I haven't decided yet. On the way home, my dad realized that we need to stop for gas. My dad had once worked for Shell Oil as a full-service station attendant, one of his first jobs in America, before he'd had children and before he married my mom. He hadn't liked the job, but had retained a deranged loyalty to the company. He would only buy gas from Shell, would allow my mom to fill up only at Shell, and when Kevin and I got our driver's licenses, for years we were told that we should only patronize Shell. We weren't completely out of gas as we left Reno and when we started looking, but we didn't find a Shell station until we got to South Lake Tahoe. By then we were all a little tense, having kept our eyes peeled for so long. It was Kevin who saw it first. There, he shouted, his finger tapping the window as he pointed at the yellow Shell sign in the distance. My dad took the exit and pulled into the gas station, which was packed full. We occupied more space than the average car with our full-size sedan, not to mention the pop-up camping trailer attached at the hitch. We were stuck waiting in the one line that gave us enough room to straighten out. As my dad filled up the gas tank, a slightly younger man pulled up in a pickup truck into the spot directly in front of us. Our cars faced each other. The man got out and began to fill his tank. He was an average-looking white man with dark hair and a puggish face. The man's eyes settled on our car, which was flashy, a shiny coral BMW sedan, and he lingered on the camper that was folded into a compact rectangular box, but could expand accordion-like into a little house that included a queen-size bed on one end, a double on the other, and in between a tiny kitchen with a table for 4 and brown plaid upholstered seating. The man at the other pump turned to my dad. Hi there. Can I ask you where you got that camper? How big is it? Does your whole family fit? How much does something like that cost? My dad glowed. Then he laughed. It costs a lot. Too much for you. You can't afford it. He smirked and chortled simultaneously. The man stared at my dad. I watched the man's face turn from friendly to confused to contemptuous. We were all watching, my mom, me, and my brother, all except for my dad, who was so busy feeling his feelings that he wasn't seeing anything. Okay, the man said, nearly smiling again. Sure, no problem, he added, as if he just called his bank and had been asked to wait on hold. They turned away from each other, proceeding as if nothing had just happened. My dad ignored the man, and the man ignored my dad, while their gas tanks continued to fill, and the space between them expanded with unspoken insult. The little screen at the pumping station ticked away the gallons and the corresponding price. The whole thing took a miserably long time. Meanwhile, the man and my dad kept glancing at each other, my dad snorting and the man squinching. My dad was the first to disappear into the mini mart to settle the bill. A few minutes later, the man followed. There was no way to know what their interaction was like inside, whether they interacted at all. When my dad returned, he got comfortable in the driver's seat, beaming, looking as if he'd won a court case in which someone had unjustly accused him of a violent crime. He didn't stay smug for long. After turning on the engine and attempting to maneuver the car out of the spot, he discovered that we were very much trapped in place. Aish, my dad muttered. He stuck his head out the window, craning his neck. He was measuring the space around us, of which there was very little, between our car and the pillar behind us, the row of cars lined up to the left, and the man's car in front. Why did he leave his truck here? My dad said, indignant. That's when I noticed that both my dad and the man had pulled their cars very far forward, meeting in the middle of the lane so that they could access their tanks with the corresponding gas pumps. A few more inches and the noses of our cars would have touched. My dad didn't hesitate. He rolled down all of the windows with the press of a button, adjusted the side and rear view mirrors, and proceeded to attempt to force his way out. The people around us who noticed what was happening stared, mouths open. The car crept along millimeter by millimeter. The amount of space between us, the man's truck in front, and the cars to the left along the way of our exit was no more than an inch. Not to mention the camper attached to the hitch that my dad would have to somehow maneuver and straighten out to follow the same unforgiving path. He kept trying to back up at an angle to allow more room in front where we were coming out at another angle, but there was a big cement pillar right behind the camper that my dad tapped lightly every time he moved in reverse. My mom was freaking out. Are you crazy? She shouted. Why don't you just wait? 10 minutes later, my dad had gotten us about a quarter of the way out of the tight space, not counting the camper, which still had the whole way to go. He kept flipping the side mirrors in and out, got my mom involved on the passenger side so that the mirrors wouldn't ding the cars that he was trying to slide past and so he could see how much room he had in the tail. The man was back, holding a soda and a plastic bag. What the hell? What are you doing? You're going to hit my car, he said. I got it, my dad snapped. Why didn't you just wait, the man said. He came up close to the driver's side window. You can't just leave your car here while you go inside, my dad shouted. Nobody brought up the fact that earlier my dad had done the exact same thing, even if he had been quicker about it. How am I supposed to get out? By waiting, the man replied. It was true. If he had just waited, even if he would have had to wait the 10 minutes it took for this man that he didn't like to do a little shopping while warming up a frozen burrito or whatever it was he was doing in the store, the man would have returned and backed out, giving us a straight shot for the exit. Somehow, the way that our car was angled had caused the traffic to stall, and now there were cars stuck behind the truck so that the man couldn't get out either. The man took a step back, seemed to be meditating with his eyes open. He took a sip from the plastic straw of his oversized soda cup. Look, if you want to keep trying to squeeze your way out, be my guest. But if you put a dent on my car, even a scratch, you're paying for the damage. You can obviously afford it. I'm standing right here, man. All these people are watching. They're all witnesses. I know what I'm doing, my dad shouted. I got it. My mom was yelling at my dad to stop, exclaiming that he was crazy, while the rest of us, including the man, held our breath as my dad tried to swing the car and the camper around and through in such a way that everything attached to us only touched air. I don't know why you want to do this in front of your kids, the man said. He was still standing very close. The ice swished and clinked inside his cup. I could have reached out and tickled him through the open window. You have your family with you. They don't look happy, he said, nodding at me and Kevin. I was sure the man was right. We couldn't have looked like we were having a good time. I was sweating. Kevin's face had lost all color. The man stood by. My dad scowled. All the time, standing around in the lot with nowhere to go, watching my dad inch forward and backward, had given the man some time to consider their earlier exchange. How do you know what I can afford? He blurted, squinching his face. Whatever, man. I was just admiring your camper, just trying to chat and pass the time while we filled up our tanks. You don't have to be a dick. My dad ignored him. It was very quiet, just the sound of the car starting and stopping. At that point, I'd gotten down so far in my seat that I couldn't know how close we were to getting out, whether we'd made any progress at all. Just when I thought it would never end, that someone would call the police to direct the traffic from the outside in, that we'd all get arrested or a car impounded at the very least, we were finally released. Our freedom was signaled by my dad shouting. See, I told you, he said. I popped my head up, noticed that we were rolling along quickly, gaining momentum at last. My dad pumped his fist in the air, hooting, looking ahead triumphantly. Kevin turned around, watched the cars beginning to move behind us. I can't believe Dad got out without scratching a single thing, Kevin said, his voice low. He looked bewildered, as if he just watched our dad walk on water. Right before we pulled out of the lot, I looked back and saw the disgruntled man still standing there, frowning as the car snaked around him. He took a sip of his soda as he watched us leave. "Yeah, you're the man said, not quite shouting, but loud enough for us to hear as we drove away. He was right where we'd left him, with his drink and plastic bag, in the same spot that my dad had thought was a trap that he couldn't wait for someone else to release him from. You're the man," he repeated.
Awesome. We are having a night of stories. And we are pleased to welcome another Tin House resident, Manuel Aragon, he, him, his, is a Latinx writer, director, and filmmaker from Denver. He's currently working on a short story collection, Norteñas. Norteñas is a collection of speculative fiction short stories centered in the North Side, a Mexican and Mexican-American centered part of Denver, and the people, ghosts, and demons that live there. His work has appeared in Anomaly. His short story, A Violent Noise, was nominated for the 2020 PEN Robert J. Dow Short Story Prize for Emerging Writers. He's a 2021 Paraplus Collective Fellow, a 2021 NYFAIAP Mentor, and a 2023 Tin House Residency winner. He is also a Colorado Book Award finalist as editor of the anthology All the Lives We Ever Lived, Volume 2. He's a graduate of NYU's Maurice Canbar Institute of Film and Television. His film work, writing and directing, has been featured on MTV, Pitchfork, and Stereo Gum. He most recently won the Cine Latino Pitch Latino Award for Emerging Filmmakers with the web series Welcome to the North Side, a comedic take on gentrification and Latino displacement in North Denver. Welcome, Manuel.
That was uncomfortably long bio, so. It felt very long. I want to thank Tin House and Constellation for inviting me. This is amazing to be out here. My first time ever being in Portland. I want to thank my friends who came out. So Emily, Matt, Chris, Jenna, you guys are coming out tonight. I want to thank Kevin and Lisa. Great reading. That was amazing. And then my wife, Sarah, and kids, they're watching at home. Embarrassing. At least you're at home. You don't have to be present here. So this is an excerpt of a short story called Mexi Mullet Marcy. Mexi Mullet Marcy was the keeper of the courts, the watchman of the hoops at Columbus, nay Ladata Park. His house, correction, his mom's house, correction, a family home where he still lived with his mother and grandmother and nieces and nephew, was directly across the street from the park. The vibrant red and white painted bricks stood out amongst the blue and yellows, purples and grays of the single-story houses on the block. Something you should know. Every hood, from the east side to the south, the west to the north side, every major city, minor one too, has their own Marcy, holding down the block. Sure, he might have been named Miguel, Michael, Miles, Max, Mateo, Manuel, Malik, Mo, or in our case, Marcelino Mondragon, but you definitely knew him. Maybe he was your cousin or a cousin's cousin, or that one kid who your mom took in and made sure he was fed and got his ass to school and provided stability on a narrow pathway to adulthood. Maybe he was you. Another thing you should know. The hood is ruthless when it comes to nicknames. Do some stupid shit, wear the wrong clothes, accidentally sweat through a Cavarici shirt at a wedding, the hood will give you a nickname that sticks for life. Marcy, unfortunately, had a mullet back when they were cool, and he was cool, and it became his signature, the way that it curled and laid down his shoulders, settling midway down his back, shaved at the side. When he went to the military, they took it away from him, but he brought it back once he came back to Denver. It was no longer cool, he was no longer cool. So the hood hit hard and the name stuck. One thing you should know, although outdated, Mexican mullets are glorious as fuck. Marcy was 5'8", the same height as me, except he had stopped growing, and I thought a few years ago, in the world ahead of me, the dreams and realities had not yet crept in, had not weighed me down, maybe I could still be something. Marcy was the dream and hopes of the hood incarnate, the should have beens, would have been, the could have motherfucking beens. If it hadn't been for that injury, that missed opportunity, that boss who was always on your back, who let you go in the middle of your shift because he didn't want to give you benefits, that job that never called you back, even though you gave the best interview of your life, that brief stint or two in jail in detox on that Saturday night, that now blemished record, the fact that you would never be tall enough to be an NBA point guard, even with your ball handling skills, the fact that only your mom had thought you were funny, and she urged you to become a comedian when no one really thought you were funny. Marcy's story was the Northside tragedy, in that it was tragic that a whole generation of men his age wanted to be something, had wanted to grow old, retire, someday have a family, some kids, a house. We don't always make it out unscathed. Marcy had done 3.5 years of time overseas in the US of A military under the banner of the red, white, and blue, and the boy had seen some shit that fucked him up, had left him a mess. He had done an additional 6 months in military hospitals in Germany and DC before they released him back home to the nutty. We lived next door to him. Their family, a mirror of ours, each of us the same age as their 3 children. My brother, Geronimo, his best friend, until they came back, and my brother didn't want the reminder of the collective mess and mayhem they'd caused overseas. My sister, Alejandra, best friends with his sister, Juanita, still tight as they exited high school and moved towards adulthood. And me, I was left with Jesus, his punk-ass younger brother who was spoiled as hell. The worst kids were always named after religious figures. If your name was Jesus or Angel, chances were that you were a prick. Another thing you should know, Marcy was ever present, roaming the blacktop of the basketball court, practicing for a game that would never come, crawling like a jaguar from early each morning before the rising sun laid into the night, when the city would shut the lights off, letting you know the park was officially closed. He was always kitted up, ready to jump in when your game of 3-on-3 needed a 6th man. He had no problem swatting a 14-year-old and letting him know whose streets these were. If you were going to act like a grown-ass man, Marcy was there to remind you that you were just a teenage punk. That kid, that adult, that man, Marcy still a boy in adult clothing. He was the one who knew all the shit going on and up and around and about. Marcy was the hood newspaper, could tell you who was selling on the block, who the cops had busted on some trumped-up charges. He could tell you about the comings and goings of the upstanding gentleman, tell you about the changes in the wind. He could tell you when something was awry. Mom and Alejandra were the only neighbors who were still kind to Marcy after he came back, treated him like a person. The block rumored and whispered and talked and turned their heads, stared at him in the park on the daily. But my mom and Ale, they didn't care. Alejandra had a softness about her that could give Marcy space and time and would let him be in a way that broken men like him weren't allowed to be. She could let him be a total fucking mess. Mom would do the same, still making him meals, walking it over to the basketball court at lunchtime. My brother Geronimo hated it because he had seen the same shit and come back fine, only angry and bitter and full of rage and resentment of an older son who was promised the world, a world that failed to deliver. He was fine, okay? Geronimo would find a reason to argue at breakfast nearly every morning, whether it was with me about how I should be helping out mom more around the house, getting an education, how Ale should stay away from men, avoid having a kid, do something important with her life, find a man to take care of her. Contradictory misogyny messages. The military had not really changed him, just allowed him to become more himself. Why do you treat that man like a baby? Come on, Mo, he's okay. Everybody's soft on him. Look at him. He's out there fucking around. He should have a job. Give him a break, Mo. Not everyone was lucky enough to sit on the boat for 4 years like you did. Shit. I work my ass off every day. Show some respect. Then you know what he's going through. Alejandra never liked to say the word and didn't want to give a label on what was happening to Marcy. Why? That he's possessed? That shit's stupid. You know it's not real. If you don't believe it, why'd you go to the house when they called the priest? Mom made me. And why did you cry when they performed the exorcism? I don't know. My brother, for once, at a loss for words. Alejandra finished her breakfast, packed her bag, and headed out the door. I rushed after her. We walked to the bus stop together, a few blocks from our house across the park. Marcy already playing ball, the sun barely rising, him sweating, putting in the work. What's up? Where you two headed? He shouted to us. You could hear his voice over the traffic on 38, over the sounds of the train horns in the distance from the rail yards that separated the north side from Globeville, Elyria, Swansea. I'm heading to work. He's going to school. That's what's up. You both good? We're fine. How your mom and pops doing? They're good. You doing okay, Marcy? I'm good. Just getting some exercise to get the blood flowing. Listen, I'll let the two of you get on your way. You have a good day, okay? Thanks. You too, Marcy. We caught the bus, Alejandra to a part-time job at the bank on 38th and me to Federal, where I could transfer and catch the bus to North High. Why do you think Mo came back? I don't think he had a choice. But he could have stayed in the military for a few more years, right? It wasn't like Marcy. What do you mean it wasn't like Marcy? They made Marcy come home. I got off on Federal near the KFC. Alejandra stayed on for 2 more stops. There was nothing out of the ordinary that day. That day when Alejandra disappeared. The weather was fine. My school day was all right. My brother was sitting at the table in the exact spot he'd been sitting in all day, still complaining about the same old shit. Something you should know. If we'd been listening, paying attention to Marcy, we would have heard him sounding the alarm bells about the women disappearing in the neighborhood, about them being sucked into the night, about a cloud over the north side, about lives simply vanishing into thin air. A voice like his was always lost in the wind, laughed at because he was simply someone to make fun of. Something you should know. Alejandra, the only one who'd really been listening to Marcy these days, was missing. But that's the thing about missing people. It takes you a minute to realize that they aren't where they're supposed to be. Thank you.
Whoa. Thank you so much to our readers. Thank you, Kevin and Lisa and Manuel. Thanks to all of you for coming to be part of this evening. We're having another one of these next month. Where we'll be hosting, well, this is a collaboration with the Carolyn Moore Writers House, which is a residency in Tigard that has a relationship with PCC, and we'll be hosting some Carolyn Moore House residents, Christina Correa and Kira Brick-Smith, who I think is here, and also Michelle Ruiz Keel. Woo! So it's going to be awesome. You should come. There's a whole lot of food upstairs. If you're comfortable coming upstairs with us afterwards, please join us there. Take care.